So here's something I haven't said in a very long time. Looks like we're entering a buyer's market. So how do you sell your house in that type of market? Let's get into it. Hey guys, how you doing? Werenka here from Simply Home. I'm the state of Michigan broker. We're one of the fastest growing real estate companies in the United States, and I've got an all-star team. So whether you're looking to buy, sell, invest, rent, whatever you need, we've got you covered. We even do property management now. So over 24 years in the business, I've seen sellers make the same mistakes over and over again. First mistake is they'll spend 25 or 30 grand making improvements to their home, and then we get to the closing table and they wonder why they didn't net more. The second mistake I see is people do absolutely nothing to their home. They just put it on the market, sell it as is, and hand every negotiating chip possible to the buyer. So who are the sellers who actually get top dollar in this market? They're not the ones who spend the most, they're the ones who spend the smartest. In this video, I'm going to tell you exactly what to spend money on, what to skip, and how to walk out of a closing with as much money in your pocket as possible. So as I already noted, I've spent 24 years in this business. I've helped a lot of sellers prepare their homes for the market. I've seen what works and what doesn't, and this video is the straight up version of that conversation. There's no fillers, there's no padding. This is if I was sitting right across the table from you, giving you the straight dope, telling you exactly what you need to do to get your home sold. So before you spend $1 on prep getting your home ready for the market, you need to know what kind of market we're entering into. And that's going to inform your decisions on what you need to do to make your home as appealing as possible to every buyer out there who's looking. And here's where the market sits right now. Like we're going into spring season. So, the number of homes hitting the market is increasing every single day. The good news is the average sale price is going up along with it. Average days on market is starting to come down a little bit. But here's the rub. Buyer demand is at an all-time low. Affordability crisis that's hitting the United States right now. Interest rates went back up a little bit, although they're starting to drift back down. And for the last several years, we've definitely had an inventory crisis, and we're starting to work through that now to the point where there's more homes on the market now than there have been at any time in the last 5 years, year over year anyway. And things are starting to shape up, but where we're starting to trend now is that we've got significantly more homes on the market than we do buyers looking to buy. What that's going to translate into, or at least what it usually translates into, is lower sale prices, more seller concessions on the seller side. Essentially the buyers are more in the driver's seat than they've been since at least 2019 at this point. And one of the best things you can do to mitigate all of that when you're selling your home is just to make sure that you're prepared properly. Because a well-priced, well-maintained, well-prepared home isn't fighting the market, it's working with it, and that's going to get your home sold faster. When it sells faster, it's going to sell for more money. And the flip side of that is if the home is overpriced or doesn't show well, it's just going to sit on the market for an extended period of time. And we're still kind of in that type of market where days on market is almost as important as price. And a home that's been sitting on the market 45, 60, 90, 100 days, those buyers are going to ask themselves, what's wrong with it? Why hasn't it sold? Why hasn't anybody else purchased that home? We don't want to get into that position. So here's what we need to do to get your home sold as quickly as possible in this market. First and foremost, the thing that most buyers think about when they're getting ready to sell their home is home improvement, making that home as appealing as possible for the buyers out there on the market. And here's the thing. On average in this country, the typical home improvement only returns 69 cents on the dollar. But here's the thing. Not every improvement returns less than what you put in. There's some that return more. In fact, like things like garage door replacement returns about 150% of what you put into it when you sell your home. Same with like a nice new steel entry door. That's about a 94% return on investment. And none of those are things that are going to make people go ooh and ah. They're not glamorous updates you can make to your home. But if those items in your home need replacement or work or attention, then those are two things you can do to really set yourself up for a good return when you sell. And let's talk about the things that everybody thinks of when they want to sell their home, like the major kitchen remodel, a total gut job, redo that whole kitchen. Yeah, 39 cents on the dollar. I don't ever recommend doing that when you're getting ready to sell your home. Luxury bathroom remodel, same deal. That doesn't return much more. And just forget about adding on to your home right now. It's just completely cost prohibitive. And that pattern's consistent. Let's talk about why for a minute, because when you're making those type of remodels, you're remodeling it to your taste or what you think that buyer out there is going to want to see, compared to what you already have, in your kitchen or your bathroom. And your style is not everybody else's style. That's why, my philosophy is just to price it for what it is. And if somebody wants to go in and upgrade the kitchen or upgrade the bathroom after they own it, make it exactly perfect for them, let them do it. But with the exception of some really, really rare circumstances, you're never going to hear me recommend you dumping a whole bunch of money into your home prior to selling it. I don't think it makes sense to sink a whole bunch of money into a house that you don't plan on living in anymore. Save that money for your next place that you're going to buy. So going into selling your home in this type of market, your philosophy changes a little bit, because we're not trying to have that buyer just fall in love with what you've done to your home. We're just trying to make decisions that doesn't stop that buyer from writing an offer. Now, what kind of upgrades and improvements can you make that really make a good return? Like we've already talked about the garage door and the steel entry door. Professional deep clean returns over 3,000% ROI. It really does make a difference. And it's one of those things where that's another reason why we don't want your house to sit on the market for an extended period of time, because if I do my job right, I'm going to bring all of humanity through your front door in a very short amount of time. And just all that activity is, going to make that fresh, clean home kind of that's not going to last forever when you have 100 people coming through your front door. And I don't want you to have to keep doing a deep clean week after week or anything like that. So the whole point is to get your home sold quickly. But another thing that deep clean does, and I've seen this firsthand, is it lets buyers know that you care for that house, that it's had that level of attention that maybe not every home that they're looking at has had. And on some level, like some subconscious level too, like some buyers are always walking into homes saying, what is this seller hiding? It just kind of helps eliminate that variable as well. If you, I guess at the end of the day, having that, nice, fresh, clean house shows a level of pride that not every seller will have in their home. And that's just going to go that one step further towards giving that buyer a little bit more confidence that they can enter into negotiations with you, and, and know that they're working with somebody who cares about the home, who has that extra level of attention. And let's take that a step further. And when we're talking about some of the, inner ring suburbs of Oakland County, Macomb County, just older suburbs, I mean, we have older housing stock. Like in Ferndale, many of the homes here are built in the 20s up through about the 60s. About, there is some new construction, but generally speaking, this city was built out after about the 60s. And you know, those houses they have had decades and decades of wear and tear on them. So, if you can do things like clean out those grout lines or the caulk, just touch up paint here and there, just little things that make a big difference when it's time to make that good first impression for buyers. Another thing that adds a huge ROI to your sale is professional photography. So I can't speak enough about it. I mean, I thought I was pretty good, with my phone taking photos, and, I had a, digital camera back in the day before the iPhone came out with such a good camera. But, in the years since I've been doing professional photography for all my listings, me, I track everything, and I've actually gotten almost a full percent back, list price to sale price back since I started doing professional photography. And especially since I started adding drone photos to all my listings. A little thing like that makes a massive difference, because, think about it, when people are starting their home search, they're looking on their phone, they're looking at Zillow or realtor.com or whatever, and it's, front photo, front photo, front photo. Well, when you're the listing that has, you're looking at your home from across the street, looking down at it, and maybe we have a dusk photo, just something that looks different from everything else they're seeing. That's what gets people to stop, click on your home. And then, from there, we have all the other professionally done photos and video and all that stuff. That's going to make a massive difference, and it's more about getting the home sold faster or just getting more traffic through it. But that's the first step in getting you top dollar for your home when you sell. And the good news on photos is none of my sellers have paid for professional photography. I don't think ever. I've always absorbed that cost for them. And the reason being is it's a win-win for everybody. I'm happy to take on that cost for my clients, and then when their home does sell faster and it sells for more money, everybody wins. For what it's worth, I will never make one of my sellers pay for professional photography. Another common sense thing that not everybody does is just decluttering your home. Buyers don't care if your basement is full of everything you own, or if your garage is full of everything you own, or both of those things are full of everything you own, as long as they can walk through the main house and not have it, not be bumping into, whatever. So that really is one of the most important things you can do is just declutter your home. I know there's people out there will say, get rid of any personalized, photos of family or pets or whatever. I've been at this for a minute, and I've never had a buyer walk out of a house and say, well, I wanted to buy that house, but since they had a picture of themselves in the living room, we're going to move on to the next one. I wouldn't worry so much about that. That being said, making sure that all of the, hallways in the house and rooms are just free of any clutter, junk, whatever, is going to make that house show significantly better. All of those things have to be working together to get your home sold quickly for top dollar. Plus, it just makes the house look bigger, which is a huge plus as well. Another thing that you can consider when you're getting ready to sell your home is have an inspector come through and kind of pre-inspect it before you put it on the market. Because you can be pretty positive that whoever buys your house is going to have an inspector come through, and they look at things that you wouldn't really think of as stuff that's, not at first glance, unless you're going to take the cover off the electrical panel and make sure that none of your breakers are double tapped. You're going to make sure that your hot water heater has a drip valve tube attached. Little things like that can really add up. And that's one of those things when that buyer's having their inspection, the thing they're thinking it past the point of, hey, is this a house I want to buy? They're looking for reasons that they can take money off of that sale price. So if you go through and eliminate as much of that as possible before you put your house on the market, it's going to be very hard on the other side of it for that buyer to come through and ask for concessions or money off. Not impossible. They're still going to do it anyway, but you're going to have a whole lot of ammo saying, hey, I already did this, this, and this. Here's the inspection report from when before I even put the house on the market. And I know a lot of inspectors around town will do that for a discounted rate as well. And if you need recommendations, just reach out to me and I'm happy to provide those for you. Another thing they're going to do, they'll look at the basement. It's a very common inspection item that we see a lot, maybe not every inspection, but more than you would think, is organic growth in the basement. I don't want to say like mold, because a lot of times it's just like mildew or whatever. But that's the type of thing that if you can address that before you put your house on the market, you're going to be light years ahead of where you would be otherwise. And that's as simple as, just a fungicide from like Home Depot or whatever. Sometimes, a lot of times you can just spray it down, wipe it down, maybe run a dehumidifier in your basement to keep it from coming back. I mean, there are a couple strains of, the toxic mold. Stachybotrys is the most prevalent one. And if that's something that you're concerned about, if you do see some kind of organic growth, mold, mildew in your basement, you want to have it tested, you absolutely can do that. Just reach out to me and I'll put you in touch with the right people for that as well. The inspector is going to look at the roof, make sure that, it's harder to tell on the 3-dimensional shingles, like that new type of roof, the age, because those don't wear the same way, those shingles don't, as like an old 3-tab shingle where you can see like the shingles start to pull apart, they start to curl up, that it's nearing the end of its life. With those 3-dimensional shingles, like really the best way to tell is the amount of aggregate that's left on the shingle itself. So you kind of have to get up there on the roof and check those. And that's, one of the things that an inspector does first and foremost when they get to the house is look at that. It's one of the biggest ticket items you can do as a homeowner. So let's make sure that your roof is in good enough shape to where the buyer's not going to back out or want a huge concession if the roof's getting, towards the end of its lifespan. Like look at the mechanicals, your furnace, your hot water heater, just little things like that where you might be able to just go in and, most of those repairs aren't very, they're not very cost prohibitive. Like the drip tube on the pressure relief valve for your hot water heater, like I was talking about, is like a $15 item from Home Depot. But it's one of those things where we don't want to give that buyer ammo to come back to you and say, hey, it's a nice house, but we just want them to be wowed at how perfect and immaculate it is. So they just give you a top dollar and go. So we just spent all this time telling you not to dump all this money into your house, just, maybe have it inspected and take care of the little tiny items. So what should you be doing to make your house as appealing as possible to the greatest number of buyers out there? First and foremost, we just want to create that really great first impression from when they pull up to your curb and walk in that front door. That first 90 seconds is invaluable. That's going to make or break most of the time if that person can see themselves living in your home or not. In fact, the University of Michigan actually did a study and found that homes with great curb appeal tend to sell for 7% more than homes that don't. And generally speaking, that's one of the easiest, cheapest things you can do to really enhance your home. Instead of gutting the kitchen and putting in the quartz countertop and the shaker cabinets and the stainless appliances and the smart refrigerator and going broke in the process, what if you just went to Home Depot and spent a couple $100 on mulch and flowers? Like we're at that time of year now where that's really going to make a difference. Any like dry rot you have on the exterior of your home or peeling paint, just scrape it and paint it and just take care of those curb appeal items. It's probably one of the most important things you can do to get somebody to consider your home as one of the ones they can see themselves purchasing. Especially this time of year too, like hiring a landscape company to do a really good like spring cleanup, really not a bad idea. That's one of those things where it's going to cost a little bit of money, but that return is going to be well worth it, especially if, in conjunction with the other things that you're doing to make your home as appealing as possible. And if you want to get a little bit more in depth, like if you've lived in your home for a significant amount of time, probably not a terrible idea to paint it. Obviously, you want to go like kind of neutral colors, especially if if your walls are just dirty looking from, kids' grubby hands touching and stuff like that. Not that I'm guilty of that or anything. Those type of upgrades are going to go a long way towards getting you top dollar, getting you the best return possible for your home. And then lighting as well. If your light fixtures are kind of old and dated, like those, any type of electrical upgrades like that, typically speaking, are not super cost prohibitive. They're pretty affordable. So it's something to think about. I'm not, again, I'm not, I'm not recommending anybody go out and spend thousands of dollars in upgrades, but maybe a few $100s in upgrades is probably worthwhile. Now you've made your home attractive and appealing. You've done the type of work that you need to do to get top dollar for it. So that's half the battle. The other half of the battle is pricing. We're not in 2022 anymore, and unfortunately, the rules have changed a little bit for sellers. You can't just stick a sign in the yard anymore, price it exorbitantly high, and then watch every buyer in town run up to your front door in the first 15 minutes your house is on the market with their absolute best offer. That's maybe a little bit of an exaggeration, but not by much. That's literally the type of market that we were in a few years ago. Not anymore. Like we were saying, there's significantly more homes on the market right now than there are buyers. So that kind of changes the game. That's why we're making this video, and that's why you're watching it right now, more than likely. But just making sure that you're priced appropriately for what you have is really going to be key in this market. There's always the tendency to like, maybe we can get this much for it, but keep in mind, like always give it a try, but keep an eye on that days on market. You don't want to wait 30 days if you put your house on the market at a trial price a little bit higher than what you think it's going to sell for, and you haven't gotten, if you haven't averaged like a showing a day in the first week, it's time to cut the price. Like you don't want to wait like 30 days before you do that, because then it's going to be too late. You're going to be an aged listing. You're going to end up selling that house for less than you would have otherwise. And at the same token, like there are people who will purposely underprice their home. It's a strategy, but it could also backfire on you, because what if, for whatever reason, what if it's a fluke and you don't get that kind of activity that you thought you were going to get? And then, they're like, oh, it's been 10 days. I don't want to sell my house for this cheap. Let's raise it up. It's so much harder to raise the price than it is to drop it. So, and really the most foolproof way to do it is just to price it where it needs to be right off the bat. And that's the best strategy. And then pricing your home, it's one of those things that it's kind of equal parts art and science. The comps are the comps. So typically when I'm using comps to come up with the value on a home, we're going to want to use homes that are from within like a 1 mile radius of your home. I only look at homes that are within 200 square feet in size and within 10 years in age. And that gives us the baseline of here's the price range that it falls into. Here's where we should be. And from there, then it's knowing the market. It's ideally working with an agent who's been in all those comps already and remembers things about them and knows where your strengths and your weaknesses are compared to the houses that are already previously sold. And then you have to look at the ones that are on the market too. So typically what you're going to find is you're going to find homes that have been on the market for a while that haven't sold. That's what we just talked about. That's where you don't want to be in 30 days when your neighbor's getting ready to put their house on the market and say, well, let's compare it to this house because it's overpriced. You know, you want to make sure that you're fitting in where you need to be compared to your competition. You know, we don't want to be overpriced compared to that house that's down the block that is maybe a better value. You want to make sure that your property is the best value on the market, and we're going to use those recent sales to kind of frame the price range that your home needs to be in. And then on top of that, the only constant in this business is that it's always changing. Different market forces can, you know, once you're on the market, things can fluctuate as well. Like what if the Fed comes in and raises rates? That, you know, might bring your price down. What if they drop rates? That might bring your price up. You know, it's one of those things where we need to kind of, you know, we need to be able to pivot quickly. But, you know, generally speaking, that's the benefit of real estate, is it's not like the stock market that goes up and down and sideways and all over the place quickly. It takes a lot longer in real estate. It's not as liquid of an asset. So typically speaking, we're not going to have to make major changes on a dime, but you never know. It's always possible. One great example of that is the great flood that we had in 2014 here in Ferndale. Literally, I had a house that had been on the market 2 days when that when that happened. Literally, that I flipped, that I own, and we had to go in and cut our price because all of a sudden the market just stopped in Ferndale, and like not just Ferndale, like all of, you know, southern Macomb and Oakland counties like had a huge flood issue, and it really put a munch into the market for a couple months at least, probably longer than that, really, now that I'm thinking on it. So you never know when something weird, like one-off things like that happen, you need to be ready to address it. So the moral of the story is, you know, the market is starting to change. Buyers are more in the driver's seat now than they've been in several years. Realistically, if you want to get serious about it, probably since about 2012. You know, 2011 or 2012 was when the market we started digging out of the Great Recession. The market started shifting back into a seller's market, and it really hasn't changed since. And then, you know, especially, you know, the COVID years and post COVID, it's really been an extreme seller's market. So this is the first time in, you know, 10, 15 years, give or take, that buyers have had as much bargaining power as they have now. So bring it all back home here at the end of the day. Those sellers who are going to be successful in this market, get their home sold for top dollar, get it sold quickly, are the ones who understand the market, understand the psychology of the buyers who are operating in this market, and then who are able and willing to make those, you know, tweaks to their home to put it in the right position so that it stands out among the competition. And obviously that's going to be different for every home in every city, and everybody's circumstances are different. So that's one of those things where experience helps and really matters and comes into play. And, you know, I've seen every type of market. You know, in the very bottom worst sellers market in, I don't know, 100 years since the Great Depression, or I don't know where the Great Recession stacks up in the history of United States real estate. But 2009 was a pretty rough year for a lot of people. I sold 109 homes that year, and they were almost all listings. So if you're looking for someone who's got the experience to get your home sold in a buyer's market, you can do a whole lot worse than giving me a call. Call or text me anytime. My direct line is 586-491-5622. Email is Werenka@simplyhome.com. I'm on all the socials, so shoot me a DM. I'll respond quick. And until the next video, guys, thank you so much for watching this. I hope this is helpful. If you do have any questions, you know, you can always leave a comment down below. Give me a call, shoot me a text. That's what I'm here for, is just to make sure that anybody that's watching this has a successful outcome when they're buying and selling their home. And if you did find this helpful, I'd appreciate a like and a subscribe. You know, that helps the algorithm, helps me out, helps this channel grow and help other people. Till next week, thank you so much, guys. I truly appreciate it. Have a great one. We'll talk soon.